Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Hello, good afternoon. Yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
I'll
Can you
just
hear me?
give a... Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay.
Sir, I'll just give a brief
Okay.
introduction about you and then you
Okay.
can
That's
start. So, good afternoon, all. On behalf of our department and my own behalf, I am happy to welcome you, sir. Now, I would like to introduce our speaker, Dr. Tapan K. Gandhi. He is going to handle a session on understanding concepts of signal processing and machine learning. Dr. Tapan P. Gandhi is currently working as an associate professor in the Department of Electrical Engineering and adjunct faculty in the School of Information Technology, IIT Delhi. He is also research affiliate to MIT USA. He received his PhD fellowship from MIT USA and obtained his PhD in biomedical engineering from IIT Delhi. He has spent 3+ years as postdoctoral research scientist at MIT USA. Dr. Gandhi was also awarded an Inspire Faculty in the Engineering and Technology category of the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. During this 5 years tenure, he is awarded as the Excellent Inspire Faculty by DST Government of India. His research expertise spans from computational neuroscience. So, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, sir. His research expertise spans from computational neuroscience, brain imaging, assistive technology, biomedical instrumentation, machine learning, cognitive computing to artificial intelligence. He has published papers in top-ranking journals like Nature, PNAS, Current Biology, PLOS, Biology, and IEEE Transactions. He has more than 120 publications in international journals and conference proceedings. He is a PI and co-PI of nearly 10 co-funded projects from the industry as well as Government of India organizations. He has received many awards in India, including one from ex-President Dr. Kalam, and abroad for his academic excellence and groundbreaking research. His research work is not only published in top-notch journals but also appeared in many popular presses including Time Magazine, the Boston Globe, the New York Times, MIT News, Harvard News, Wall Street Journal, and also in the Science magazine. Dr. Gandhi's work was selected as cover page in Science magazine in 2015. He has delivered many invited talks in national and international universities like NGH, Harvard University, Yale University, MIT, Copenhagen University, University of Cornell. He is one of the international members to review European Union joint projects on vision science. He has 3 patents and 3 technology transfer to Ministry of Social Justice, Government of India. He is serving as an expert member in various committees in Government of India, UNESCO, as well as reviewers in many journals like IEEE, Elsevier, and Springer, etc. He has also received Platinum Junior Young Scientist Award in the year 2015 by National Academy of Science in India and GYTI in 2019 award. Presently, he is mentoring an artificial intelligence startup, Enable IT, incubated in IIT Delhi campus. He is also the chairperson of the project Prakash Charitable Trust that helps in restoration of vision and providing education to visually impaired in India. So thank you for accepting our invitation and the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Pongothai, right?
Yeah.
Pongothai.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. For this nice introduction and good afternoon, all of you. I hope that you can hear me, right?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Okay, very good. So let me share my screen and then I'll start.
Okay, sir.
Uh, can you see my slide now?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
maybe let me make it a little bit bigger.
You can put it in the slide view. Slide.
Right. So
I
I think
tested.
yesterday, yeah, we have already tested. It was
Yeah.
not working fine. Okay. I think
Okay.
now we can see.
Yes, sir. It is clearly visible.
Okay.
Yes.
So I hope that all of the participants are mostly faculty or student also.
Research students as well as faculty.
Okay. So definitely, so I mean, though I wanted to talk lots of stuff, but I thought that I should tell you some of the fundamental concepts. Basically, as a researcher or as a scientist or as a faculty, when you do something, so we need to understand that why you are doing all this kind of thing, right? So that's why I thought that I should talk about understanding concepts of signal processing and machine learning. So,
Okay.
I mean, don't feel that I mean, okay, when I'll talk very fundamental things, some of you might feel that these are very low level things I'm talking about. But always, please remember, we all do great things from very low, I mean, if a very good understanding of the low level stuff. And this is very clear, right? So, first of all, here, I'll just give you some idea about the signal system concept. I mean, though you know it, but many of you also, I mean, I don't know, I mean, whether you know it or not, but I feel, I mean, after my interaction with many people, those who used to work with me or in my lab or who, I mean, with whom I talk to, sometimes I feel that, okay, we do mistake because we don't have understanding about the very fundamental stuff. Let me show you this picture. Can you see this picture? It's coming. Can you
Yes,
see
sir.
this? Okay,
Yes.
very okay. Okay, I'm just making a little bigger. So here, I'm just showing you that how we classify different kind of signal. So before coming to the signal, whatever, I mean, whether it's a body signal or any kind of signal, before that, we call it a waveform. And waveform may be a signal or maybe a noise, right? So if I ask you how you differentiate between a signal and noise, definitely I might get many answers from you. Maybe some of the answers are wrong or maybe some of the answers are right. But if I'll ask you in a layman language, okay, what do you mean by signal or what do you mean by noise? In the layman language, you will tell that the signal which bears information or which carries information and the noise which does not carry information. But again, this signal and noise, the difference between the signal and noise is very specific to the person. Let's say for me, let's say if somebody is speaking something, right? And whatever he is speaking, maybe that is informative for me. And maybe that, I mean, whatever he is talking, maybe not informative for you. So with respect to this, maybe this, whatever the person is talking, this is a signal for me. Maybe that the same thing is noise for you. So again, this is noise and signal is a completely relative kind of term, right? So when we divide the signal into different categories, first thing we'll get either it will be determined or it may be stochastics, right? And then comes, if you'll see in this picture, under this determined category, we have three kind of signal again: periodic, quasi-periodic, transient. And in the stochastic category, it is stationary, non-stationary. Let me give example here. So when I'm talking the periodic signal, periodic means if it's a sine wave or cosine wave, that means the signal which repeat itself after a particular instant of time, okay, we call it a periodic signal. I mean, when the period is constant for that signal, that's the periodic signal. Like, sine wave, when you generate a sine wave of, let's say, 50 hertz or sine wave of 60 hertz, that would be the periodic signal. And it's very easy to see, when the signal is periodic, so you can tell many things about the signal, right? Let's say if I'll give you an example of ECG signal. Many of you must have done already work on this ECG, or maybe you have seen this ECG signal. You must have seen this peak and toe, right? It's called the QRS complex. And if a normal person, if you record the ECG signal of a normal person, and in that signal, what you will found, if you calculate the distance between peak to peak, most of the time you will find that, it's very much similar. Okay. That's why, not exactly same, but similar. Let's say peak to peak between peak 1 and 2, let's say this is, 30 centimeter. 2 to 3, it would be 29.9 maybe. 3 to 4, maybe 29.8. I mean, it's very close to each other, but you might not get exactly same, right? This is what we call, this is called the quasi-periodic signal. I mean, signal which is kind of periodic, but not complete periodic, we call the quasi-periodic signal. Then comes the transient signal. Transient signal, how will get the transient signal? Let's say you want to record the firing of a neuron. Neuron means neural cell. If you will record the activity of a neuron, that how it's firing, you will get a spike kind of thing. This is called the transient. Transient means it will give all of a sudden, it will give a jerk kind of thing, right? Like impulse. I mean, it produces an impulse kind of response, right? These are called the transient category. So all these three signals, which I told you, periodic, quasi-periodic, transient, these are coming under determined signal. Determined means you can determine of its characteristic features of the signal very easily. Then comes the stochastic signal. Again, stochastic signals are of two types, stationary and non-stationary. So those who are working in the brain signal like EEG, you must have heard the term called the alpha wave, delta wave, theta wave, right? And all these waves are having a particular frequency range. Let's say alpha wave, here I have shown you alpha wave. Alpha wave is from 8 to 12 hertz frequency. So when it's 8 to 12 hertz, you can see it looks like a very little bit of periodic, but it's not actually completely periodic, right? This is called the stationary wave. What is non-stationary wave? So in non-stationary wave, the statistical properties change during the time. What does it mean? When in your wave, you have many different kind of frequencies all together, it's very difficult to tell which frequency present in the signal just looking by naked eye, right? This is called non-stationary signal. So here the most important part is, that's why I have highlighted in red color. Many researchers do mistake in this part, stationary and non-stationary. You cannot, I mean, what we do, let's say whether we do the machine learning or simple signal processing, we try to calculate some kind of features. You know, this is a very, very common terminology called the features, right? So when the signal is in the non-stationary format, when somebody will calculate the features from a non-stationary signal, he or she will do many mistakes because you cannot calculate the features of a non-stationary signal when the statistical properties changes along the time. That's why when you will process any kind of non-stationary signal, first of all, you need to make it to stationary form, and then you can apply some kind of mathematical treatment. So this is the place where many researchers do the mistake. Even I am telling you from my experience, I have seen many, even IEEE transaction journal also, people publish the work which are completely wrong based on this concept. So one thing I would like to highlight you here. So always, I mean, okay, always when you do research or when you study or go through some kind of literature, so it's always not true that, okay, whatever research I am reading, that's, I mean, it's being already published means it's the correct. Even I'll give you many examples where I can tell you, I'll prove you that how the research which has already been published are completely wrong in nature. So the question then definitely you might ask me that then how we will know that whether it's correct or not. These are based on your understanding of science and technology. The way, I mean, how you are, what is your understanding of how all these fundamental things, accordingly, you can, I mean, put your own judgment. I'll give you some of the examples. That's why I thought that I should not talk very big thing, what I'm doing or what my students in my lab are doing. I thought that I should tell you all the fundamental and basic stuff which you need before going to do any big thing, right? So when we talk about the signal processing, let me give you some historical background. Okay, so what do we mean by this signal processing? You must have heard many different kind of things, just like signal processing, pattern recognition, data mining, right? And nowadays we are talking about machine learning, deep learning, all this kind of stuff. But if you'll bring down everything, to the ground level, you will see these are nothing but simple signal processing. Ye machine learning, deep learning, whatever you're doing, these are nothing but the signal processing, right? So what do we mean by signal processing? So signal processing is basically I mean, okay, so always try to, okay, the very beautiful thing in all this kind of thing is, whatever I'm telling you, always try to remember the things the way I'm telling you, or I mean, in a very layman language, you try to understand, right? What do you mean by signal processing? Signal processing means when there is a signal. Signal means you know the waveform, right? And from the waveform, I'll throw you, let's say you are in front of me, and I'll give you one waveform to you, and I'll tell you, tell me about this waveform. Then what you'll do? You look at the waveform, and looking at the waveform, you will tell about the characteristic, right? Let me give another very layman example. I'll ask two person, let's say one from let's say Kashmir, another from let's say Kanyakumari. Two person from two different places of India, or maybe let's say one from let's say China, one from South Africa. Okay, and I'll bring these two person, and then I'll ask you, tell me about this. I mean, even you don't know who are they, and if I'll ask you, can you please tell me something about this two person? Then what you'll do? You will tell yes, maybe you will tell, okay, maybe their the height are different, their color are different, their language are different, their food choices are different, or maybe you can compare some other parameters, right? This is how you can tell how they look like, or what they tell, or what they eat. Then based on that you will tell. So when I'll give you some kind of waveform, then similarly also looking at the waveform, you will tell what's the amplitude of the waveform, how long it's continuing, and maybe what is the frequencies, some of the characteristics you might tell me. And when you are going to tell me, maybe you look at the signal, or maybe you will do some kind of processing, then you will tell me about the signal. And this is called the signal processing, right? So basically, when you can tell me the characteristic of the signal, that is called the signal processing. Clear? Okay. So when we talked about the signal processing, the three first primary things comes to our mind: time domain, frequency domain, time frequency domain. So time domain, what do you mean by time domain? Time domain means when somebody will give you some kind of signal, always try to see in the time domain format. So let's say you don't know anything. Let's say you collected some kind of signal and you will send to me and you'll ask me, sir, tell me that how I'll move forward, or what you can see in the signal. So first thing what I'll do, I'll just plot the signal in the time domain. How to look like? Let me show you this figure. So here in this picture you can see there are three signals you can see, and all the signals are sine wave. Okay, first signal, second and third, but you can see though they are having equal amplitude is plus minus 1, but you can see the number of repetition is different in three pictures, right? So definitely if I'll ask you which is more frequency, then the obvious answer will come that the third image is the higher frequencies. Okay, so here let's say these are my some kind of waveform, and when somebody will give me to tell me about the signal, what I'll do, I'll plot the signal in the time domain, and I'll see that whether the signal is a periodic signal or not periodic, and if it's or any kind of signal, basically whether it's a deterministic or non-deterministic, right? Then I'll see that, oh, this signal is varying from plus 1 to minus 1. That means the amplitude is constant throughout the time. Then what I'll notice, oh, this signal is also repeating after a particular interval time, and you can check the repetition rate is same for all the signal. Then definitely I can tell that these are all periodic kind of signal, right? So if when you ask me to tell me about the signal, then very quickly I can tell these are all periodic kind of signal, and they ranges from 0 to 1, and many other kind of things I can tell you. This is called the time domain information, right? Here, let me tell you another concept. So when you will get the signal, always always remember one thing. So from where you are collecting the signal, try to know the sampling rate of the signal. Because if you don't know the sampling rate or sampling frequencies, you cannot do signal processing just, using your, what we do in the MATLAB or Python, you cannot do anything. Because sampling rate will tell you what is the, what's the time period. Even if you don't know the time period, from the sampling rate, you can find out your time period. So that's why it's very, very important. Either you should know the time rate or time, or you need to know the sampling rate of the signal. Otherwise, you cannot do any kind of signal processing. Okay. You know that sampling rate is how sampling rate and time are related. Sampling rate f equal to 1 by t, right? They're inversely proportional to each other. So in the time domain, always remember, in the time domain representation, it will not tell much about the signal. Only it will tell maybe some kind of, let's say, amplitude or how the signal look like, some very basic information you might get. And you can tell good amount of information if the signal is sinusoidal or cosine, basically periodic. But if it's not periodic, it's very difficult to tell what is happening in the signal. Okay. Then what is the solution? Then what will be the next step? The next step is the frequency domain representation. Okay. So first I told you the time domain representation. Then I'm telling you the frequency domain representation. So what do you mean by the frequency domain representation? You know that Fourier transform. So Fourier transform is a mathematical tool by which we decompose the signal into different frequency components present in the signal, right? And there are many use of Fourier transform. Fourier transform, if we don't have the Fourier transform, we cannot design the filter. Because why filter is required? Because you know that in this environment, there are many different kind of frequencies they are present. Some of them are valuable to us, some of them are useless for us. So in order to capture only the valuable information, we need the filter, right? And we design filter based on our Fourier transform analysis. So based on your Fourier transform, you can get that which are your signal of interest and which are your noises. And based on that, you can design your filter. Okay. So here, let's say in this picture, on the top two signal, these are low frequency signal. So you can manually look at the signal, and by your naked eye, you can tell what is the frequency of the signal. But in the third picture, you can see, though it looks like a periodic kind, but it's very, very compact. So it would be very difficult to calculate by your open eye. Then what we can do? We can apply the Fourier transform on this signal. So when you will apply the Fourier transform, what you can see here? In this Fourier transform, you can see, I'm showing my cursor, you can see two peaks. One is here, and one is the left side, and another the right side, right? So it says that these are the frequency component present. And in the top figure, you can see there are two peaks, because you know that when we sample a signal, the sampling rate is always fixed with a Nyquist criterion formula. That is, the sampling frequency should be greater than equal to 2 times of baseband signal, the original signal, right? So we always consider that maybe whatever the sampling rate, then according to the Nyquist criterion, it would be half, right? So that's why we can see two peaks over here. But actually, our signal is half of it. That means only our interest is only one peak. That's why the second picture, we have take only half from 0 to 500, you can see. So from the signal, I can tell that this is a 50 hertz, because this is 0 hertz, this is 100 hertz, and the peak you can see at 50 hertz. So from this one, I can tell in my third picture, the frequency of interest is 50 hertz. Okay. And why this Fourier transform is also important? Because you know, let's say you are somebody working on the brain signal or heart signal. You know that when you are collecting the signal, there is a chance of mixing with the power line interference. So when there is a power line interference, then definitely it's a very big problem for, when you go for the analysis. That's why, let's say if there is a, let's say in our India, we have 50 hertz power line interference. So 50 hertz means from the power line, from the spectrum, you can see, if you can see the 50 hertz, you can throw it out using some notch filter or any kind of band stop filter, right? Okay. So now, what we found from the frequency domain analysis? So we found that a pathological condition can sometimes be diagnosed more easily when the frequency content of the signal is analyzed. The natural question comes to our mind that is it necessary to have both the time and the frequency information at the same time? Because you will see in the signal, I just presented to you. In the signal, I am showing you which frequency is present in the frequency domain analysis. But I cannot tell you at what time this frequency component is present. Also in the time domain representation, I can tell what is the amplitude of the signal and how long it's continuing, but I cannot tell beyond that, or I cannot tell which kind of frequency present in the time domain representation. That's why here I've written, that's why it's very, very important to know at what time which frequency component exists. Okay, then the question is how we'll get it? Now the obvious answer is we'll get it by using time frequency representation. Okay, so that I'll talk later, time frequency representation. But here, when I'm discussing about the Fourier transform, here I've also written that Fourier transform tells us how much of each frequency exists in the signal, but it does not tell us when in time this frequency component exists. This information is not required when the signal is called stationary, which I've already explained to you when I'm talking about the stationary and non-stationary signal. Okay, so this is a very interesting example. You can see here. So if you look at the signal, this is one example of a stationary signal. Stationary signal means, what's the definition? That the signal where the statistical properties of the signal does not change with respect to time, or otherwise I've written here, signal whose frequency content do not change in time are called stationary signal, right? That means, what it means? It means that all frequencies are present at all time, okay? So let's say if I'll give you this signal and I'll tell you, or I'll ask you, tell me about the signal. Definitely, it would be hard for you to tell what is present in the signal. Even in the time domain analysis, you cannot tell, then you have to go for the Fourier domain, frequency domain analysis, right? Again, you can do like this. Let's say here in this equation, you can see xt is my signal, complete the whole signal. Xt is equal to cos of 2 pi ft. First f1 is 10, then cos of 2 pi f2t, second f2 is 25, cos of 2 pi f3t, then plus cos of 2 pi f4t. You can see here, I have added 4 cosine wave or 4 sine wave, whatever, both are same. Okay, so 4 cosine wave having different frequency. You can see here, I have taken 10 Hz, 25 Hz, 50 Hz and 100 Hz. And then I mix the signal. So if you type this command in MATLAB, you will see this kind of waveform. Okay. And when I add all this kind of waveform, I'll get this zigzag kind of mixed kind of waveform. Okay. But now we know the equation, and from this equation we got the signal. And if I'll take the Fourier transform, the Fourier transform will look like this. The top figure is 0 to 500, but I took half of it, or let's say 120, or to make it bigger. So that's why I've taken in the lower figure 0 to 120. So you can see here in the earlier one, in this signal, I have used 10 Hz, 25 Hz, 50 Hz, and 100 Hz. Correct? And you can see here the amplitude of all these sinusoidal waves or the cosine wave are all same. Right? That's why you can see here, all this frequency component 10, 25, 50, and 100 also coming in the F50. And the same time, you can notice here the amplitude of all these peaks are same, because in our original signal we have used only one. There is no variation of the amplitude. Okay. But this is another signal. This is called the chirp signal, and this is the example of non-stationary signal. Non-stationary means in the signal the frequency component of the waveform is changing with respect to time. That means near zero, you can see here, the frequency is very low, and when you go from left to right, the frequency is slowly increasing. That means here with respect to time, the signal frequency is changing. In the same time, the statistical property is also changing. And this is the most difficult aspect of the signal. When we process the signal, first of all, we need to know that whether the signal is stationary or non-stationary. If it's non-stationary, then you have to first convert to the stationary format. Then you can apply all kind of signal processing technique. Okay. So here, with respect to the other signal, what we did here we change, we have the same frequency component, but instead of time t for all, we have taken different time instant. You can see here, from 0 to some time point, we have very high frequency, that is 100 Hz. Then after some time, we have 50 Hz, then 25, then 10. And all the signal are of different time instant, right? And you can see here the signal, the frequency component are not mixed. They are appearing for a certain interval of time. That's why it's called a non-stationary signal. And then, interestingly, what you will see here, if we take the power spectrum of that signal, the power spectrum will look like this one. Okay? So here, this is the power spectrum. So now, I am going to ask you one question here. These are the two signals. On the top picture, you can see here. The right corner picture I have shown you earlier, which is the stationary signal, and the left picture right now I just show you, and both the signals having the same frequency present. My question would be, in the lower diagram, you can see these are the Fourier transform of these two above signals. So if you look at this Fourier transform, you can see for the non-stationary signal, the power spectrum are having equal height. But in case of the left side, which is non-stationary signal, you can see the power spectrum are not having the equal height. And in the same time, you can see also the base. If you look at the base, in the right side picture, you can see it's very smooth, but in the left side picture, you can see the jerky in nature. So here my question to you is, why these two signals, the power spectrum of these two signals are different when they contain all the same frequency, 10 Hz, 25, 50, 100, both are same, but why the amplitude is different, as well as in the base you can see it's a smooth right side and the left one is a jerky one. Why? I'll be happy if any one of you will give this answer. This question is for you. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Whether you can hear me or not? Yes, okay, very good. If anyone can answer, you can throw some random answer also. You tell me, this is what the basic fundamental of the signal processing I'm telling you. The top two figures are, these are, created using this 10 Hz, 25 Hz, 50 Hz, 100 Hz. Then the question is, why the power spectrum are different for these two signals? The same signal. Same means having the same frequency. Actually, they are not same signal. Yeah. Any answer? No? Okay, I thought that I should ask you a question because actually after lunch, even I am feeling sleepy. So, in order to be awake, we should have interaction. But okay, that's fine. Let me answer this question. So here the beauty is, as I told you, that in the non-stationary signal, the left side, that means the signal frequencies are changing after certain instant of time. So when the signal frequency will change from one to another, the change is abrupt kind of thing. That's why you can see the jerky here. And as the signal present for different duration of time, let's say the first signal, let's say this 100 Hz, present for long time. And then 50 Hz also present for the similar amount of time. But then 25 Hz and 10 Hz present for a small amount of time. That's why they have different amplitude. So if they will present for equal amount of time, then their amplitude would be same, which is happening in the right figure. In the right figure, all the frequency component present for the equal amount of time and all over the signal. That's why the amplitude are same, as well as all frequency component present at all time. That's why there is no jerky at the base. Okay. So these are, very, big thing. Even, when you are trying to look at your signal, that how my signal looks like. Okay. Okay. So now what we found that until now we found that what kind of information we can get from the Fourier transform, right? So then comes the short time Fourier transform. Okay. So then you, as I mentioned to you, in the Fourier transform, you will only be able to know what are the frequency present in the signal, but you are not able to know that at which time the frequency component present. That's why the scientists came up with the idea of that let's represent the signal in time frequency representation. Time frequency means where you can find both time as well as frequency. But also in the same time, we have studied from our earlier classes that you cannot measure two things simultaneously at the same time. This is called the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. So in chemistry, you must have heard that in the Heisenberg told that you cannot measure the position and momentum of the particle at the same time. Likewise, here also, though we are going to measure time and frequency at the same time, but again, it's a handshaking kind of thing. That means if you want high time resolution, you have to lose frequency information. If you want high resolution frequency information, then you are going to lose the time information, right? And this is what we call the scaling. Okay. So this is the equation of the Fourier transform. Okay. So I'm not going in details in the mathematics. You know, these are very basic thing. So here, okay, in time frequency representation, you can see here, in one axis, I'm showing you time. Another axis, I'm showing you frequency. And another axis, I'm showing you amplitude. But here you can see all this colorful kind of bird which are present here. Because as I told you, in the frequency domain, in the Fourier domain, we get the mirror image of each other. That's why you can see the mirror. But actually, these are not all. People take half of this component. That is what you wish to know, right? So first scientists came up with the idea called the short time Fourier transform. So in order to convert the non-stationary signal to stationary signal, what you can do? You can take a small window. Through a small window, people take a small window of the signal that would be considered as the momentarily static. That means for the time instant, the signal is static. So once you can do this, then you can apply all this signal processing technique. Okay. So here, if you read all this Fourier transform, you can find that when you will choose a narrow window, so using a narrow window, we will be able to get good time resolution, but we will compromise with our frequency resolution. But if we will take a wide window, then definitely we will get good frequency information, but we are going to lose some time information. So this is one kind of handshaking kind of thing, that how to compromise or how to choose the window size so that we can get both time as well as frequency resolution. Okay. So, okay. So for that, when I'm talking about the short time Fourier transform, what we do, we consider some kind of window, right? And that window, we try to just move from one side of the signal to the other side. And these are the example I'm showing you, some support window. And the support window depends on that what kind of signal you have. So if you have very high in frequencies kind of signal, then you have to choose a very smaller window. And if you go a very slow frequency, then you have to go for a wider window. Then you can get, you will be able to better localize both time and frequency, right? So here you can see here this 10, I mean the frequency which you, I mean, okay, let's say here you can see very clearly the 10, 25 and 50, 100 Hz signal, how they are presenting, and you can see this is a mirror image to each other. So you need not to take both the side, you have to take the in between. I mean, if you will take the half of this signal, this will represent your whole signal. I mean the signal which we have just discussed. Okay, but here you can see parallel, you can see in the this side you can see the frequency, and the right side you can see the time information. You can get both the time information. This is called the time frequency representation. So there are many different techniques are there. Let's say wavelet transform, Hilbert transform, S transform. So these are the techniques by which you can represent the signal in both time and frequency domain. Okay. So here, okay. So here what I'm showing you here, I'm showing you 4 different windows. And when I'm using this 4 different windows, I am getting different type of signal. So here in the signal you can see, in the signal, the time resolution actually, okay, if I'm talking about the time as well as the frequency resolution, as I mentioned to you, both of the things is very difficult to achieve, right? So if I'll use, let's say A equal to 0.01, I mean the window length, and you can see there is a very wide window in the the right corner, right? And for that, it will create different kind of signal. So the difference between this signal and this signal is, here in this signal, the frequency resolution is very high. You see in the frequency scale, it's very thin. But in the same time, the time resolution is very poor. Time, you can see, time is getting overlapped. But in the previous signal, the time is very good, because you see, in the time scale, all of these frequency components are occurring after the previous gone, right? But you can see a spread in the frequency scale. So if you will take the more, bigger window, you can see, bigger window means the wider window, you can see the frequency is very, very specific, whereas time is getting overlapped. Time resolution is very, very poor. So it's up to you what kind of size, window size you need to consider to get the good resolution, both in time as well as in frequencies, right? So I'm not going to details. Again, okay, these are very simple thing, and a few of the slides, the picture I have used from a tutorial called Ravi Palikar on Wavelet. You will Google, you will get. So from there, I just copied this picture, for your understanding. This is a very simple thing. Just I'm giving the concepts, right? So in this way, okay, I'll tell this multi-channel. Okay. So in this way, in this 3 kind of representation, what I mentioned to you, one is time domain, then the second is the frequency domain, and third is time frequency representation. In this way, you can give lots of information about the signal, and from this basic understanding, you can take your work to a very higher level. So this, time frequency representation, I told you that wavelet decomposition is one of the method. Okay. So let me see if I have wavelet decomposition in my slide, then I'll tell. Oh yeah, yes. So what do you mean by wavelet decomposition? Okay. So let's say you have an original signal. Let's say you acquired a signal. For the sake of understanding, let's say I'm taking one brain signal. You are conducting some experiment and you got a brain signal. And let's say you have fixed the sampling rate is 500 Hz, right? When you acquire the signal. So 500 Hz means you are sampling your signal at a rate of 500. That means 500 samples per second. You are acquiring your signal 500 samples per second, right? And after getting the signal, what you can do, you want to make, and because I told you that EEG signal is completely non-stationary in nature. So before doing any kind of process, you have to first convert to the stationary format. And how will do it? Now, as you know, already I've told you that in order to make it stationary, you can apply some short kind of window, very small window on the top of the signal. So what will happen, that for a particular window, that signal will be assumed as statistically, the statistical property is not changing with respect to time, right? And one very beautiful way of doing this is just using the wavelet decomposition. Wavelet decomposition is a technique, you know, that we just try to break the signal into different small wavelengths of different frequency range. How we do it? Let's say when you acquire a signal, the sampling rate is 500 hertz. Okay, then you know that when we take the sampling rate is always ideally 2 times equal to or greater than 2 times of the baseband signal, original signal. That means when I'm taking the 500 hertz means I am assuming my original signal is 250 hertz. Okay. So now when you apply decomposition, you have to start from 250 hertz signal. So that's why here I've taken original signal and then you have to divide by 2. Let's say if my original signal is 0 to 250 hertz, then I'll divide 2. 2 means 0 to 1, okay, divide 2 to 5. Then it would be 100, kitna hoga? It would be 125 or whatever. You have to always make it half. 0 to 1 to 25 and 125 to 250. Okay, the other side also go like this. So the lower frequency component are called the approximation and the higher frequency components are called the details. Okay, so you can go on dividing depending on your need. So in that way, this is called a filter bank, one kind of filter bank, right? And using this filter bank, whatever the signal you will get, these are all static, or you can tell the statistical properties of these signals remains constant. It does not change from time to time. Okay, so this is one way of converting non-stationary signal to a stationary signal. So after getting all this coefficient, approximation detail coefficient, then you can calculate the features of the signal, which you can use for your machine learning purpose, right? Okay, then you know that, okay, there are different kind of wavelet families are there, depending on their shape. You must have heard Hor, Dobesquis, Simlet, Couplet, orthogonal, and all these wavelets are having their own properties. They have their own filter length. Depending on that, your computational complexity will go on or off, and at the same time also you will get the good accuracy. So you have to find it out which wavelet is fit to your signal, because these are all mathematical tools. Always, don't try to just like people without understanding the basis, what they do, whatever the techniques available, just they apply the techniques on their data. But what I'm telling you, that before doing that, first try to understand how your signal look like, what kind of mathematical treatment is required, and accordingly, you give the justice to your work. Don't apply randomly without knowing the basis behind it. Okay. So I hope that you got some idea about the signal. I'm not taking you deep, just I'm giving some kind of idea. So please go through it, because these are very, very fundamental things. And on top of this, you can do good research. And if you will not understand all this thing, and if you will feel that I should learn more machine learning, artificial intelligence, then you will be end up nowhere. You cannot do anything, right? Okay. So I'm not going into details of all this thing. So let me talk about, then a little bit about the machine learning, how it's being used. Let's say with respect to the brain signal, you can see here in this picture I'm showing you that the person is sitting wearing the electrode cap. The electrodes are attached to the cap, or it's directly connected to the human brain, and then from here we can get the brain signal. So how how we can just let me show you some of the things. Okay, let me give one example here. Then you will be able to understand how you can use the machine learning. So machine learning is nothing but, so what we do in the machine learning, these are also the same kind of signal processing, but we put in different way. Okay. After getting the signal for any kind of experiment, what we do, we try to extract some kind of features out of it. So one way we try to extract features and then train on model. In other way also, we don't try to extract features. We just throw this data to the machine to learn by its own, which we call the unsupervised learning, right? If you Google, you will get all the supervised, unsupervised. I'm not going into details. Everything is available online. So here in this slide, you can see, let's say I'm doing one experiment to understand how my brain can differentiate from familiar faces from the familiar to unfamiliar. Let's say, if I'll present Mahatma Gandhi's face to you and I'll ask you, who is he? Automatically, all of a sudden, you will tell that this is Mahatma Gandhi. If I'll present a random face, if I'll ask you, what is this? You'll tell, oh, it looks like a face, but I don't know who is this, right? And this is called the unfamiliar face. So the question is how, I mean, both the images are faces, but how our brain is taking decision that this is a familiar face and this is an unfamiliar face. So in order to do this, what you can do, you can conduct an experiment. When somebody is wearing the cap, having all this electrode, you plus all these familiar and unfamiliar pictures to the person, and then you will record the brain signal, right? For the sake of clarity here, you can see I have highlighted only P4. P4 means one electrode, and I'm showing that how the signals are coming with respect to different objects and different faces. You can see. So I represent red color for the unfamiliar and yellow color for the familiar faces, right? So after getting this signal, what you can do? You can do some kind of analysis. Just I mentioned to you, let's talk about the amplitude analysis. This is the time domain analysis. So in the time domain analysis, what I can do, I'll take all the signal for the unfamiliar faces and all the signal for the familiar faces. Then what I'll do, I'll average it out and then apply some kind of statistics to find out is there any difference of the signal with respect to these two kind of faces. And then if I'll get some kind of statistical significance, I can say that yes, at this instant of time, these two signals are differentiable. That means there is some difference, right? And I can do this thing from sensor 1 to sensor, whatever sensor, 256 or 512, whatever number sensor. Or either I can see in the frequency domain analysis, just like I told you the frequency domain analysis, you can see here, what you can do. You take that corresponding EEG signal for that particular object and find out the time or the Fourier transform. You can see this red color. And then also on this Fourier diagram, you can apply this point-wise t-test to find out the pattern out of it, right? This is the frequency domain analysis. Then coming to this machine learning analysis, what we do, out of all this data, whatever data we'll collect, let's say some of the data we use as a training data set. So we train the classifier based on the data. Then the rest of the data we use as a testing data set. So training and testing. So after giving the training with the data, when we throw the test data to the machine has to, or the model has to estimate or do the analysis, right? So here in this case, I have signals from all the sensors. Let's say from sensor 1 to, let's say 128 sensor. This is the x-axis, and y-axis is my performance indicator. So from all the sensor, whatever the signal I'm getting, and if I wish to divide into both familiar and unfamiliar, according to the classification accuracy, I can have this kind of picture. And from this picture, I can find it out that which are the sensor is crossing the performance of 50%. And if, let's say here in this case, let's say sensor 2 or sensor, let's say 8, they are crossing the threshold level, then I can say these are the sensor of interest that which I can consider for my further analysis, right? So again, it's up to you that how you are playing with your signal. So you have to, that's why I've suggested you that when you will do signal processing or machine learning, all this kind of stuff, you need to understand your problem first, that what I'm going to answer. And according to your problem, you have to think that what would be the techniques or what would be the mathematical formulation I should use. Okay. So this is a little bit about, the machine learning. Okay. So machine learning, again telling you, this is nothing but this is, okay, many people think that these are all big things. These are actually not big things. These are all, modification of the signal processing technique. Even the deep learning is also the similar kind of thing. Okay. So even, I'll show you one of the work recently we just published in IEEE transaction neural rehabilitation. So we are trying to make a, epilepsy prediction gadget where we want to make the device less complex and which will be powerful and efficient. Then we thought that if we'll go with machine learning, it will consume lots of power. In the same time, it will make the system complex. So we thought, is there any techniques by which we can develop this kind of gadget where the complexity of the signal would be very less, right? Then what we did, let me show you. Okay, let me okay, so let me show you this one. Okay, this is tracking the transition of brain state. So basically, we wanted to understand, you can see here how the brain signal look like. So you can, in this picture, you can see the brain signals are very random in nature. It looks like a noise kind of thing. You hardly can predict anything just looking at the signal. So we thought, instead of machine learning, can we find out the pattern out of it? So let's say this is the EEG signal, what you see. So this signal is collected with respect to some eye close and eye opening, let's say. But here, just looking at the signal, you cannot tell where we did eye opening or eye closing. So what we did, we took the signal, you can see here. So from all the signal, we took a small frames, frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, and frame 4, and then we apply some agent decomposition analysis. And after agent decomposition analysis, we got some agent vector. So you can see all these are agent vectors. So you know that agent value decomposition, whatever the dominant component you will find, so dominant component means those which are changing very fast. But our interest here is to find out the component which does not change very fast. So changing very fast means which are the component, I mean, you know that when we collect the brain signal, we will get many noises. So the component which is very fast means these are not informative vectors, right? So we try to find it out which are the less changing or invariant vectors present in this agent values. Okay, so in this agent vector analysis, we then track the change of that invariant spaces across time, and accordingly we found that if you'll I mean just track this invariant spaces, you will be able to track that where the signal is changing. And this is a very interesting paper. It's available already online. You can, I mean, if you wish, you can download the paper from the online. This is, I mean, on my name, people type tracking the transition of brain state and an analytical approach using EEG. So this is a very fundamental, very small paper, which is very powerful than machine learning kind of thing. Okay. So always one thing, please try to remember, as a researcher or as a scientist, your job is to make the things simple, not to make complicated. All the solution of all this big problem lies in the simplicity. So don't ever try to implement any complex structure or complex mathematical formulation on any problem. Always try to answer this question in a very simplistic approach. Okay. So this is what I wanted to discuss with you today. I wanted to give you some very basic foundation of the signal processing. If you have any question, you can ask me. Actually, I mean, taking online class or online lecture is very difficult. Actually, I get I'm very quickly very tired. I enjoy giving 3-4 hours lecture if I'm in front of you, but when I'm away from you, or if I'm giving a lecture about this Skype or this Google Meet, I feel, or I get tired very quickly. So that's why I'm stopping here. So if you have any question, please tell. Or if you have, I mean, if you wish to ask me any particular question, you can discuss with me now. So now the floor is open for everybody. You can ask me any questions.
Participants can kindly unmute and ask the question.
I think no question.
Is there any queries?
Good. I hope that your participants, either they understood everything or the other way, right? And I'll be happy if you understood something out of it, whatever I presented. Okay, if you have any question also, you can write me an email. I'll definitely answer your question. Yeah, that's all. My email, you just search my name. My email ID you can get easily in the Google. My name is Tapan Gandhi. If you'll type my name, you'll get everything about me. Okay. And one more thing, actually, every year I used to organize a very big hands-on, workshop, very good workshop at IIT about brain mapping and artificial intelligence. Very high-level kind of thing, and we provide very good kind of. This is one of the best workshop in this domain. So maybe this time I don't know whether it would be online or offline, and mostly the techie they support. Or the QIP support the faculties for the travel and stay for this program. So maybe I'll share this link with your organizer if I'll do this year. And if if that time if everything is fine, if you can come down to Delhi, you can learn many things. Here we give hands-on training on all this cutting-edge technology. Any question?
I think there are no questions, sir.
No question. Okay, very good. Thank you. Yeah.
Shall we close?
Yes,
sir?
yes.
Okay. So on behalf of our department and my own behalf, I extend a sincere thanks to our resource person, Dr. Tapan K. Gandhi, for giving valuable insights on the basic concepts of signal processing with the help of machine learning. And he has also given a brief insight about the brain states and how it can be analyzed. I'm sure your address will help a lot in understanding concepts of signal processing and machine learning, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you for accepting our invitation and sparing your valuable time, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kind attention to the participants. The attendance link and the feedback link has been posted in the chat box. You can kindly fill it. Once you have filled, you can leave the meet. Tomorrow, the session will start at 10 a.m. The first session is at 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. So participants are kindly asked to log in before 10 minutes of the session. Thank you.